Life can change in an instant. For many wheelchair users, the struggle to push forward is a daily challenge.
After years of development and countless prototypes, we created Rib Grips, the revolutionary wheelchair hand rim covers with built-in ribs for ultimate grip and comfort.
No more slick surfaces, no more heat burns, just pure, reliable grip. Rib Grips, empowering you to push forward with ease. Rib Grips, get a grip on your freedom. Discover the difference. Visit ribgrips.com and use promo code GRIP today. You just found the perfect product that helps with staying cool during hot summer runs. No more gross warm water. Stay cool with this product from Gear Handle. This hydration tube cover helps keep your water cool and easily accessible. Stay hydrated during those long summer runs or even delay from freezing in the winter. Plus, they're compatible with various brands of water bladders and come in various colors. Visit gearhandle.com and use promo code H2O today.
Coming up on the Payoff, Gentry Jones is somebody who has been on my radar for a long time. About a year and maybe a year and a half ago, I had Casey Scott on this podcast. He's a news personality in Utah. He's the man, sober guy. And through following Casey, I noticed that he had this woman, Gentry Jones, on his podcast. And she carries an incredible message. She's hilarious. She's developed a huge presence on social media. And of course, she's sober. And I feel like, in my opinion, the more women out there like her, the better. The more people out there, the better. But I do feel like there is a void there for women that are just being open and honest and vulnerable on the level that she is doing it. And at Life with Gentry, you got to give her a follow. She doesn't need it, but you'd probably do. This is an awesome conversation. One alcoholic to another, and two people who do recovery, two totally different ways, but clearly it's working for her. I hope today it's working for me. But first, Kevin Souza. So when did you start drinking? Like you grew up in Washington, right? Washington State, and in a smaller town, correct?
Yes. There's only about 3,000 people in the town, and it's on the east side of Washington State, so a lot of farms and wineries and very agricultural driven.
How far, like, just to give people like an idea, how far are you from like Seattle or something like that?
I am 2.5 hours from Seattle.
Okay. And is that like the biggest like city close to you?
There's another city, but not like a Seattle.
Because I know Washington a little bit. I've been to Spokane and Pullman and Seattle. So I know the area a little bit. It's pretty cool out there.
Yeah. It's nice that we get all the seasons. I mean, Pacific Northwest is beautiful. So, and we are a lot hotter on this side. So we get like really hot summers and, and we'll get the snow. Seattle's a little bit more like, doesn't change a lot, but it's always a little bit colder or rainier, where here we get like the hot summers and then the cold winters. And
so what kind of kid were you growing up? You were like me. You were the youngest of three, the baby of the family. And you were also like me. You were a total people pleaser from a young age. But what was growing up for you like?
Oh, man, growing up, I feel like we were the all-American family. Both my parents are teachers. My dad is a basketball coach. We all played sports. We all were involved in different activities in school. So I was in like ASB, which is like the, what does that even stand for? I can't even think about that. But like student body.
But you were volleyball, you were fast pitch, and you played basketball too?
Right. Yeah. Volleyball, fast pitch, and basketball. And as a freshman, was on varsity for all three sports. Just like very athletic. Always wanted to do drama. And so I quit volleyball my junior year to join drama. And
how did that make you feel? Like going out there? Because for me, I think that's part of the reason I do this. And I see what you do as a life coach, and you're very visible on social media, and you there's a performance art to what you're doing. Right. As a kid, when you started to do drama, was that sort of intoxicating for you?
Oh, and I loved it. It just wasn't the world I was raised in, so it was really overwhelming. My comfort zone was sports, and my family's comfort zone was sports, and so for me to be like, I don't want to play a sport. I want to do drama was like not normal for my family. But I loved it, and I always like as a kid was like, I'm going to grow up and be a like famous actress and like help people, and in a way, I almost kind of get to do that now with social media. Like, I get to create content. Like today is a big content creating day, and it's like things I've learned in drama are things that I applied to, like creating content, like how the camera hits you, and just different things that you learn, and just like, I get to kind of lean back into that. But drama at the time was not really something that my family did, and I just thought like I like doing this, I would be good at it, and so I tried it. And I didn't have any education in it, so I kind of fell on my face. Like I was like the bottom people on the play.
But that's
like,
what happened. But that's what's weird with at least me and my like alcoholism, right? Like if I did something and I wasn't real good at it right away, or it didn't come naturally, I would be like, okay, like this isn't happening. At least that's how I was.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely took like the wind out from underneath my sails. Like I just thought like, oh, I'll just show up and I'll get like a lead role and I'll be totally. And I was like, oh, this is a lot harder than like I'm just used to being the star of the show. I have to actually work to get to that position. So, but it was a good experience. I think I learned a lot, and I'm glad that I did it. But I wish I would have kept leaning into it at that age. But
so what happens? What happens with like when do you start to drink? Like these are your formative years. When do you remember the first time you drank?
The first time I drank was in middle school, and it was just at a girlfriend's house, and she had her parents went to bed, and she went and snuck like a cup of vodka, and then we were like mixing it with soda in her room. So that was my first experience with alcohol, and it was fun. Like we were laughing, we were calling boys, we were like. We didn't want to go across the house to pee in the bathroom, so we had a cup that we peed in the closet, and we thought we were hilarious. And it was a good experience, first time experience. And I didn't drink again or start drinking more consistently until like probably senior year of high school. But that was my first experience was in middle school.
How did you evolve as a young kid? I know you've been transparent about the fact your parents got divorced, and I think that has more of an effect on people than I think it's become so normal in our society, right? Divorce happens a lot, but regardless of how often it happens, it has the same impact on young people and the kids involved. What was that like for you?
I think that the timing for me was the biggest factor. Is I was in that transition period of middle school age where I'm not a kid anymore, but I'm not like a teenager, and there's so many like hormones at that age and puberty and all that stuff happening that I think my parents handled it the best that they could have. I don't think that they did anything abnormal or did anything to like cause trauma on me during that time. But I think that just the time period, I started to be a lot more aware of my friends and if they liked me, started to be more self-conscious if they liked me. And then I had this happening at home. And at the time, not a lot of people in my life had divorced families. So I didn't really have any friends to kind of turn to about it. And I remember being very dramatic about the whole thing, but I think that it was just the timing of that like puberty age of transitioning to be like, well, now what's my life gonna look like for middle school and high school, and so I probably took it the hardest out of the three. I know my sister was pretty upset at first, but she was like a junior. She was in high school, so she was almost out of the house.
So you guys, by the way, any alcoholism in your family or any problematic drinking that you saw or you've been able to discover since you've gotten sober?
Since I've gotten sober, I have other family members that have also gotten sober, and nobody was to the extent that I was. It might have just been like they just didn't like the way that it was making them feel anymore, where I got to the point of like having vodka in my water bottles at work. So I was definitely the extremist, but yeah, there is. I have family members, cousins. I have on both sides that are open to about their recovery as well, and yeah, so definitely family history that I kind of knew about, but since getting sober, I definitely have found more people in my lineage that have struggled.
That's how it's similar for me, at least. When I got sober, you start to, at least for me, I started to open my eyes to other people in my family. I was like, oh, that's what happened to my cousin Dick. You know, or Steven. That's what went down. So when you start to drink, like, you're obviously an achiever. Your parents are divorced, and you start to drink. Like, when you started to drink in high school, because I remember the first time I started to drink. I always say this. I was scared to go to the dance in 8th grade, right? It was awkward. Mm-hmm. I felt uncomfortable in my own skin, and I drank in 9th grade, and I couldn't wait to get to the dance. I couldn't wait. And that is how it affected me. Did it have a similar effect on you?
Yeah, definitely has that ability to silence those insecurities and fast track, kind of overcoming the fear of those moments, or
a quick fix.
Yeah, like super. And at that age when we don't have like the fully developed brain to be like, no, I can work through this and get through this. It's super convenient to just be like, I'm going to just drink this and I feel good. I'm laughing. I'm happy. I get to be silly and whatever. And if I go too far with saying something, if I go too far with acting crazy, I can just blame alcohol for it. So it was definitely a safe route.
Did you notice, like, did any of your friends notice that you liked drinking more? Did you notice that you liked drinking more than the next person?
I did notice that I like drinking more, and I just thought they were boring. Like, why don't you guys like to drink as much? My boyfriend through high school, we drank together, so we had that together. So it wasn't like I was constantly looking for people to drink with. I always had him as a drinking buddy, but we definitely drank more than other people in our class. Did
you start to hang out with people like that weren't like, did you kind of morph? Did you notice that your crowd was more of a drinking crowd? Like, because when I got to high school, I definitely had a group of guys that I was tight with, but we all were pretty hardcore.
Oh yeah, I definitely didn't. I was bored with people that weren't partying. So we hung out with a lot of people that were older than us, already graduated. And just people that was their lifestyle, because that seemed fun to us.
At this time, what is your life looking like from the outside? Even because I'm sure, like, I know that I was having a blast, but I did start to notice some stuff that I just totally, silenced in my head. I was like, nah, it doesn't, this drinking thing is a gift. You definitely don't want to stop it. And from the outside, my life probably looked okay. Like you were still achieving, right? Everything's going well. I'm assuming going into college.
Yeah. So through high school, I had a lot of responsibilities. Being in a small town, my parents were both teachers, like I said. So they had all my teachers on company or like on district email. So it was really easy for people to keep tabs on me. So it wasn't like I was ever sneaking out of class or skipping class. I didn't like to disappoint my teachers. I didn't like to disappoint my parents. And so I was the good student.
Did everybody in your small town, I want you to be honest, did everybody know who you were? Because you got a big personality. Your parents were involved in coaching and teaching. So was there an accountability there?
Oh yeah, huge accountability there. You didn't want to let anybody in the town down. Like especially as an athlete in a small town, I would go to the grocery store and people would be like, "Hey, good game on Saturday." Like people I didn't even know that were watching the high school game. So, yeah, you definitely feel like you're a big fish in a small pond. Definitely.
Why didn't you play, or did you play sports in college?
No, I was supposed to play basketball in college, and just financially, it just didn't make sense. I needed to work, but I could have.
Yeah, I was assuming so. So you go to college, you go to Central Washington, is that right?
That's where I went for my first year, yeah.
And what is the college experience like for you? Are you still dating the boyfriend?
Yes, that's for the kind of off and on.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. So you go into college, you're off and on again with the guy. And
yeah.
How does your drinking? Because for me, I kind of had the same deal. My mom and my dad were just kind of on me, and I was like having some success, like you were, like with sports and stuff. So partially I got a pass, but another partially, like I had to be somewhat accountable because people would talk. And I got to college and school was out, even though I was still I had some responsibilities with sports and stuff, but when I realized I could drink during the day and all that, I was like, wow, this is crazy. What was your experience like?
That was very similar, except for I didn't have the sports to help keep me accountable. But you show up to college and you have all the freedom and zero accountability. You have to just hold yourself accountable. And for me, that was just like not possible. And so I started drinking. I ended up getting alcohol poisoning within the first month of college, and going to the hospital. And
what's the situation? Are we doing drugs at all at this point?
At that point, yes. That weekend before I got alcohol poisoning was the first time that I had done cocaine. So,
and what was that like?
Oh, that was also awesome. Everything was so much fun first.
Totally, right? The first time I did cocaine, I was like, I'm going to do this every day.
Yeah. It's hard not to tell people not to do it. So like, it was fun at first. Like, well, so with cocaine, it was something that, like, alcohol was my drug of choice. Like, that's what I like doing. Cocaine helped me continue drinking alcohol. So it would kind of like sober me up, let me keep going through the night and keep the party going. But I mean, when they tell you in middle school that first time it's never going to be like that again is 100% true, because every single time I had done it after that was a little less fun and a little bit more paranoid, a little less fun and a little bit more anxious, a little bit less fun. And like, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And then the come down kept getting worse and worse and worse, where, it was not worth it anymore.
So, and it sounds like, by the way, you have your first, you're having like your first bender, right? Like you're up for a while, your body's ready to get knocked out. And then you drink, I'm guessing obviously in excess. And then you have alcohol poisoning. I don't know that I've ever like officially had that. What is that experience like?
Well, I was blacked out. I was in the dorms. And I was drinking with some people in the dorms, and we were in one of the guys' halls, and I passed out in the bathroom downstairs. And so a girl comes into the bathroom, finds me in the bathroom passed out. I don't remember any of it, but they call 911, and then they come, and I just remember being on this stretcher and them asking me how old I was. And I was like, not old enough to drink.
Yeah, so you're already like kind of a wise ass, right?
Oh, yeah. So I was like, oh, well, at least my personality was still there, because I remember saying that. But then I went to the hospital. My sister came, and they hooked me up to an IV. I was there for, I think, a couple hours. I don't remember the whole thing, but they ended up releasing me later that night. And I went to stay at my sister's house. But I had mom and dad both calling and worried about me the next day. And that was a little bit of accountability, kind of like, okay, if I'm going to try and be a party animal, I have to at least not get caught. So
yeah, that's total alcoholic mind, right?
Right. Yeah. It wasn't like I need to stop doing this. It was like, I need to not do this. I need to do this so that people don't know that I'm doing it.
We'll get back to this conversation in a second, but right now, a word from our sponsors.
The world looks different behind the handlebars of a Rad electric bike. Grabbing takeout looks less like greasy styrofoam boxes and more like a cross-town adventure. Ride shares look less like piling into the back of a car and more like grabbing fresh air with your friends. And commuting can even start to look like the best part of your day. That's because with Rad, the world is what you make of it, not what it makes of you. See for yourself with a 14-day free trial. Find your fun at radpowerbikes.com.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. That's the sound of another sale on Shopify. The moment a business dream becomes reality. Shopify is the commerce platform revolutionizing millions of businesses worldwide. They simplify selling online and in person and provide 24/7 support so you can focus on successfully growing your business. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/offer22, all lowercase.
The all-new Chevy Colorado is made for more. Stacked with the latest in-vehicle technologies like a class-leading 11-inch diagonal center touchscreen and an extra-large wireless charging pad. Plus, it features wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility to make staying connected easy wherever your adventure takes you. Chevy Colorado, made for more. Learn more at Chevrolet.com/truck/Colorado. Claims based on latest competitive data.
And so how does it continue from there?
So the first year of college was just really bad. Like, just I continued going to school. I passed all my classes. I did well, but I was drinking heavily throughout the whole year.
And so you were always that girl getting good grades. I mean, you became an established accountant. So you got your CPA. So you're an achiever.
I've learned. I don't really know if I'm smart. I feel like what I'm good at and why I'm good at maybe social media is I'm good at reading people and what they want from me. So like, it was always about, what does that teacher want? What is that teacher going to test me on? What's that? Like, so much of school was not about me wanting to learn about accounting. It was me learning the teacher on what they wanted me to know. And so that's what I did, is I studied the teachers.
Well, I think you're underselling it. That's actually smart. So you got to give yourself some credit. But so you're still getting good grades, but it's a nightmare, right? You're drinking all the time. Are you dating anybody?
So that first year, the high school boyfriend and I had broken up, but then the second year, which is when I was going to go play basketball, he was at Wenatchee, so I had gone to Wenatchee and I was going to play basketball there.
Wenatchee?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Wenatchee is it just has a community college. So I went from a university to a community college, thinking that if I was playing basketball, that could help. And if I was back with the boys, it would help. But it was just the same stuff. I did finish my AA there. I didn't end up playing basketball just because financially, like I said, that I couldn't get enough of a scholarship to not be able to not work.
Yeah.
I needed to pay all my bills. So,
So you're a hustler. I mean, you're working, you're in school, you're getting good grades, but you're just this other part of your life. Did you feel like alcohol and drugs were like something you needed to survive all the stress you were dealing with?
I felt like, it just became such a crutch. Like, it just, I actually, in Wenatchee was the first AA meeting I had gone to, because I had woken up while dating the boyfriend. I woke up at somebody else's house with, like, half naked, don't remember how I got there, where I was, what happened. And I was just like, I can't keep doing this. So my first AA meeting was in that year at Wenatchee.
And you went yourself? You were like, I'm going?
Yeah. And I didn't say a word. I sat. I think I even just kind of cried in the corner.
Yeah. Did a lot of people come up to you and talk to you?
Nobody said one word to me. I snuck in. I sat down. I kept my head down, and then I turned around and left. I don't think that I was fully ready at that time to really admit to my alcoholism.
Here's the thing. I see that as like a huge step, because even though, I mean, luckily nothing horrible happened, right? You didn't die. You still have your children. You didn't have any like crazy car accident. And that was like the beginning of you. Sometimes that's why I kind of had this podcast, and that's why I think your social media presence is awesome. Like, sometimes it's just like dipping your toe in the water. People don't even know. It's like, okay, I'm not ready. That doesn't work for me. But the fact that you had the willingness to walk in there, just that action enough, I think that's a huge deal,
Yeah. And I think that the biggest lesson I've learned throughout the journey of kind of trying to get sober is that I have to be willing to fail. Like if I want something, I have to be willing to fail, because so many people will give up when it's not going their way. And it's like, you'll get there eventually, but you have to keep like putting yourself out there. You have to attempt different things. You have to keep going if you want to get there. And that means that sometimes you're not going to be ready, or sometimes you're going to get knocked down, or it might not turn out. I wanted to get sober at 21 and I didn't get sober till 30. So it wasn't my game plan, but I got there because I kept quitting.
Yeah, you kept quitting. I like that. So you went to rehab for the first time at 21. So you go to the AA meeting. Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Yeah, I went to the AA meeting at 20, and then 6 months after turning 21, I put myself in rehab.
And so just from doing some backstory on you, at the time you're dating a guy who's sober, and he's kind of like moving you towards that. Like, hey, like this is a good way of life. Was he like recovery sober, or was he just not drinking?
He was just not drinking.
Okay. And was he worried about you? Like, hey, you're drinking too much?
Yeah, but I also think I don't know if I believed him or if I just feel like, because that's what he was pushing that on me. Like,
people pleasing.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah. And so you go to treatment, and what happens?
So I think another lesson learned with, like, yes, you have to keep quitting, but you also have to keep maintaining. Like, you have to keep that maintenance up. Like, you can't just mow your lawn once and then you're good to go. Like, I went, as my goal was I'm going to take a break from alcohol, and I'm going to, like, once I get alcohol out of my system, I'll go back to school. I'll get I'll be fine. I don't have to, like, this part of my life can be over. But I didn't want to really address, like, the mental health. I still was super, super self-conscious and, like, what's the right word for it? But I was really hard on myself still. Like, had a lot of guilt for things that had happened. I wasn't able to let things go the way I think you need, really ready to get sober. And I didn't put in the work to keep up sobriety. I got sober for the 21 days and removed the alcohol from my system, and then tried to go back to life.
And it just wasn't. And how much longer did you stay sober after that?
Well, I got pregnant about 6 months after that, or maybe 5 months. And I had drank once before getting pregnant, and then was sober during my pregnancy and sober for a couple months after my pregnancy. Probably about a year and a half before I drank again.
And so what's that like, by the way, if you're an alcoholic and you get pregnant, like, did you know, hey, like, did the motherly instincts, because clearly you're a good mom, did the instincts kick in? Like, I'm not drinking for the, like, what goes through a woman's mind? Because I have no idea.
Well, I think part of it for me is that, like, that need to belong, that need to fit in was a big part of my drinking. I wanted to hang out with the people that were drinking. I wanted to fit in with that circle. And so they're going to be okay if I'm pregnant, if I have an excuse not to drink. So for me, it was difficult and it was hard, and it wasn't like something that it was hard for those first little bit to, like, quit drinking. Well, the first one I was pretty much sober besides that one night. But the second, and then the twins, nobody was going to give me shit for not drinking the way they would if I wasn't pregnant.
Okay. Yeah.
So it felt a little bit safer to say no, because I had, they would approve of it.
And so you mentioned you go from your first AA meeting at 20, and when did you say you really stopped? Like when you were 30? Yeah,
shortly after, like a few months after turning 30.
And over that period of time, you have 4 kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the same guy, like the man you married?
No, the first son was with the sober guy that I went to rehab for, and then the other 3 are with my high school sweetheart, who we reconnected when I moved back home after getting pregnant. So that's who I married.
And you guys get married, and I've heard you talk about, this whole time you're stopping, you're starting, you're stopping, you're starting. And the way you say it is really cool. You don't put any blame on him, but you were still in a relationship where you're trying to stop and this person is still drinking. And it was difficult for you.
Yeah.
What do you say, like, when women connect with you? Obviously, I'm not asking you for all your secrets, but you are out there. You're a sober coach. What do you say to? Because I would imagine, a lot of women listen to this, and I would imagine that some of them just don't know what to do. Like you're trying to stop drinking, but you're in a marriage where your husband is drinking. Like, how hard is that to stop and stay stopped, or how hard is it to make the decision that you've got to do what's right for you?
That was hard. That was probably the hardest part. Like I was saying with the pregnancy, when people would accept it that I was sober and that because I was pregnant, it was so much easier. But when you're just saying, like, I don't want to do this anymore, I don't want to do this lifestyle anymore, and you're not sure how it's going to affect your relationship, like that codependency on that relationship was really hard to break also. I mean, I'm addicted to alcohol, but I'm also addicted to like needing a partner. And I think if you are in a healthier space in a less codependent relationship, you're able to make that decision for yourself and know that that's what's best for you, and then continue to work on your relationship separately. For me, they were so intertwined that it was really hard. Like, I needed him to come with me or I couldn't do it. And I don't think everyone is like that. I think that that some people, I have a lot of people that are in mom groups that their husband still drinks and they are okay with it and they're fine and they're comfortable with it. But I think just the habit and the codependency that we had on each other through high school and then getting married and having that, it was really hard for me to, I was afraid. I was afraid of, if I quit drinking, what happens to us? And if something happens to us, what happens to our family? Like, there was just going to be such a domino.
Yeah. And so it's another excuse, like, why not to stop. And it's a really good one. I mean, because at the end of the day, you're thinking about your family, but you found the courage to change, which is like why you are, such a bright light today for other people that they're trying to get sober. When you had your rock bottom, or everybody, I had like 4, but yours particularly, you said, was you were drinking at work, right? And people were starting to get a little worried. Like, you had your circle of people who knew you drank too much, but then you kind of, like a typical alcoholic, right? You can only control so much. You had a situation at work. What exactly happens there?
Yeah, so I had been drinking leading up to going to a work lunch that everyone was going to be able to drink at. But since I was already drinking, it just kind of put me over the edge.
Yeah.
And so I just left work. I didn't tell anyone. I just got my stuff and went home. And in that like moment, in that like just the whole experience was just like this hopelessness of ever getting sober. And I felt like now that they knew, I had no choice but to like run. Like, I had to run from this job like I've done in the past. Like, whenever I got like out of control on things, like I would quit jobs all the time because I like was embarrassed about drinking, or embarrassed that I didn't show up to work, or it was like I have to run again. Like, I have to run from this job again, and I have to like, I was just hopeless. It was like, this is going to be like, what I think of it as is like, until this point, I felt like I was eventually going to figure it out. But when I was sitting in my garage that day, it just felt like I'm never going to figure this out. So either I'm going to, like, how can I be the best drunk mom? Like, what can I do for my kids? Because I'm never going to be able to figure this out. Or it was like, maybe I should just run away from everyone. Like, maybe I should just like, they'd be better off not having me in their life, whether that was like suicide, whether that was running, like physically running away, or just like checking out completely and asking like my family to take them for a while. Like, it was this complete hopelessness of like, there's no overcoming it. So how can I best be like, how could I take care of my kids the best as a drunk mom.
Man, it's not even an option to go the other way, right? And then you're sitting in your garage, and so what do? What comes over you, and then what's the move for Gentry then?
So I think that the biggest part of why this one stuck was the fact that work knew. So, and not to say that my kids didn't deserve a sober mom at all. Like, they absolutely did. But I think that it was, now I'm being faced with having to leave this job because I'm going to get fired if I keep doing this, or like actually getting my shit together so I don't get fired. And I talk about it like layers of accountability. So like, yes, my inner circle knew, or like my ex-husband knew I was drinking a lot. My close friends knew I was drinking a little bit more. They might have known a little bit more. My family knew, but they didn't know like the extent of it. And then it was like, now I have a whole other layer of accountability of people that know that I might have a problem. And I think that the more you can build out those layers of accountability, because then I started going to AA, and that was another layer of accountability. Like, okay, these people know that I show up here at lunch every day. So if I don't show up, like, they're going to start to worry. So I need to make sure I'm staying accountable to them. And then sharing about it on social media was just another layer of accountability outside of the people that are going to co-sign your bullshit, because the people in your circle, on the inner circles of your life, are going to co-sign your bullshit. So like, the more you can get it outside of that, I feel like the more successful you can be.
Where did you find the courage? Like, you start to share your sobriety with people outside, because a lot of people love AA because it's anonymous, right? But then, so you go to meetings, and then you kind of transition into this public world where, now we're reaching back to the ninth grader that was, taking drama. Like, we're tapping back into that, which is honestly, in a pretty cool story, it's kind of who you always were. But you felt like you had to be something else, or you felt like you had to achieve and be the CPA. And so you start to share about your story. Like, where did that come from? What was that like?
Well, I think like what you just said is exactly where it came from, is that who I was meant to be, my purpose, my gift. For so long, I felt that my ability to be the center of attention was me craving attention, me being too much, me being insecure, like needing that. And really, that's a gift of mine. Like, I am comfortable with the attention of being out there. So tapping back into those things that, like, a kid that I dreamed of doing and being, was like where I started to really find passion and like a fire to continue to try to succeed in that area. Like, it's like, this is what lights my soul on fire, and this is what I want to do. And now I get to help people, as I also get to do the things that I love doing, like creating content and being creative, and getting to share my journey, because I feel comfortable doing that. And not everyone feels comfortable doing that. So if that's the gift that God's given me, then I need to use it.
What happens? Like, what kind of, you mentioned that fire, what did people like, what were people like reaching out to you and reacting? How did that make you feel?
That's huge. And that's another layer of accountability for me, is when people are saying, you inspire me to get sober, you inspire me to do this, you inspire me to do that. It's like, okay, am I being as true and authentic to myself? Am I portraying a true authentic reality? Because, like, some people on social media can make it really look like they're doing one thing, but they're leaving.
Yeah, that's the one of the most attractive things about your presence and you, is that, so much of social media, right? It's like, I need to do a social media detox, or whatever. Like, this is making me, I'm doom scrolling. I'm thinking about how much my life sucks, comparing my insides to other people's outsides. And then somebody like you, who doesn't take themselves too seriously, who tells us exactly where you're at, and can give a good message and make people laugh. That is like super important. I think that, like, there's more, the authenticity you share with that. It had to be hard to discover that, or maybe it wasn't. I don't know.
I think that the more it was not, it was hard. It wasn't like it wasn't impossible. It wasn't like, like some people have really fear and anxiety around that. I was able to share. I wasn't able to share as deeply at first. So my first post about sobriety was extremely like vanilla is how I describe it. It was like, I've decided to quit drinking for 90 days just because I want to feel better. Not like I was in my garage feeling like I wanted to kill myself and I had bought that water bottle. So It's like, it was very, very vanilla. And so I think just like building up confidence over time in myself and in my abilities and in my journey, just having confidence that like whatever it was is in the past, and it's now an opportunity to learn and help other people learn and help other people get sober. And it's not something that I have to keep carrying around like this guilt and shame that I had carried around for so many years that was constantly bringing me back into addiction.
And so you're on fire, and you're like, I need to chase my purpose, right? I'm guessing. I mean, you tell me. And so how hard is it to transition from here I am trying to keep up with all the other moms. I got, I'm an earner. I'm an accountant, but now I'm going to ditch this and go become a sobriety coach or a life coach and just completely put myself out there.
Well, that's a good question.
That's a hell of a transition. I'm sure it didn't happen overnight, but I'd imagine that comes from your sobriety and just sharing yourself and feeling it and moving forward with that.
Right. And I think, it didn't happen overnight. It's not like I just woke up one day and I was like, you know what, I should quit my job today. It was about a year where I was like, I really would love to be able to just do this full time. I was doing content creation on the side. I had a couple of reels go viral and just built up a lot of confidence around that. I started getting kind of like some partnerships. And I thought, if I was working 40 hours a week doing this, like actually something I'm passionate about, I wonder how successful I could be. So I got in a good position financially where I was buying a new house and sold my other one, and in that process had a payout. So I was like, okay, I have this good cushion. Let's do it for 2 years. I fail. The worst thing is I have to go get another accounting job. I've already done that before. So, I think that when you are at a point where you wanted to essentially like die, and you are able to overcome that, trying to like switch jobs or like like a career seems like I could do this. Like I'll figure it out. Like if I can figure out how to get back to wanting to live, I can figure out how to make money. I can figure out how to provide for my kids. Like I just have a lot of confidence that whatever I put my mind to, I can do, because I had made that such a big change in my thought process with sobriety that I could do that with anything.
Yeah. And it's an inspiring story. Part of your story is, it's not all unicorns and rainbows, right? The pandemic hits, and you drank again, like once. And I've heard a guy tell me recently, he almost wanted to drink again just to see if he had one more like good time in him. You know what I mean? He's like, I gotta be able to go back sober for a while. And you are sober for like a couple years, and you kind of build this case, right? Like at least that's what I do. I can like convince myself why I can do X, Y, or Z. And you drank again.
Right.
And so how did that go down? I mean, how does like explain to people, because I love the way that you say, I think a lot of times, and look, I'm a 12-step dude. AA, like I that's just kind of what works for me. It's not kind of, it is. But there's a ton of different ways to do this. And I think one of the things, even in the sobriety community, that I want to smash and get with people like you and help to smash it is the shame. Like if people go out and drink, like just come back. Like it doesn't matter. People do get real carried away, in my opinion, about time and days and all that stuff. And your story kind of speaks to that. It's like, okay, you drank. And so what happens when you drink, by the way? It's always good to hear what happens when we go back out.
It was like so much fun. No, it was not. It was, I ended up fighting with the people in the house that night. I stepped on a nail, had like a big cut in my foot. I was crying. I woke up super sick. It was not fun. It was not fun at all. But I think that, when I got sober, I really had to accept letting go of that guilt and shame. And so when I had my lapse, because I don't like to call it a relapse, I feel like people make lapse into relapse by collecting that guilt and shame again. Like, oh, now that I drank, I have to make this into another 2-month binge, and you don't. You can just be like, you know what, I'm going to let this one go the way I've let everything else that I've done in my past go. And I had this lapse, and realized I'm still not a good drinker. And I realized that I put 2 years into being sober, into changing my mindset, into being like healthier mentally, physically, all the things that one night does not get to take away my sobriety. I still use my original sober date as my sober date. I don't feel like I can, like, those 2 years don't count because I drank for one night. It's like they absolutely do, to me. And everybody else can see that differerly. But yeah, I see so many people that they're so focused on the timeline that they're not focused on the work that they're putting in that time.
Was there a point, this is like what, March of like 2020, I guess, where, right, is that right? Like around that ballpark?
Right. Yeah.
So was there a point when, after you drink that night, the next morning, when you're like, I'm like, fuck it, I'm just going to keep drinking? And like, was there a moment when you're like, wait a minute, this is a lapse. Like, I'm not going to let this own me?
There absolutely was that moment. I left the house the next morning feeling super guilty, feeling all that shame, feeling like now that I've drank, it's just, we're back on this ride. And I went to a gas station. I bought the things I used to buy, Mike's Hard lemonades and just different things that I used to always drink. And I went home and then I put them on the table. I was feeling awful because I had gone 2 years without poisoning my body.
So physically you're just like, the next morning, right?
Right. So yeah, physically super, super sick. But I put the bag on the table and
this is the Mike's Hard lemonade.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the Mike's Hard. I did actually go to the store to continue the lapse, to make it into a relapse. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do it. I'm just like, I didn't come this far just to feel like shit again. And so I had a friend come and take the alcohol. And the next day I outed myself on social media again, because that for me is helpful. It's a good layer of accountability and just honesty. It's like, I can't have a sober page and say that, and not share that part. I feel like it was important for me to share it just for my own recovery and for also people to know that, like, okay, I had this night and then I let it go and I didn't continue it.
And you have that toolbox that you have developed over time that you can go right back into. Yeah.
And people might think that is like, well, why wouldn't you just drink every year? Well, because it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
Because I learned it was fun. Like, it's like if you could just start and stop. It's like I can't really start and stop.
That's that like 9-10 years you shared with us, right? Like that's and you come at the end of that, you're hopeless and you're thinking about, going off the grid or you're wanting off the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's where it takes me too.
Yeah, so it's like it's not like something I wanted to continue doing. I did it and it was not fun, and it'd be different if I went back and it was fun. And I'm like, man, maybe I should try to do that more often. And it was like I went back and it was not fun. So and I felt horrible. Mentally, I felt horrible. Physically, I felt horrible, and I didn't want to continue it. I was like, no, let's get back on track, and so that's what we did.
So you're back. I mean, like you're on track. You're not back. I mean, this was years ago, but back. I'm gonna just backtrack around that time. Are you like? Because for me, like drinking and relationships always went hand in hand. Like when women approach you and they're like, how do I date? How do I do this without drinking? What is your, what do you tell them?
Oh, it's so much more fun to do it not drinking, because I just feel like you're in so much, the more you do those things without alcohol, the more you appreciate the ability to handle them. And you appreciate the ability to know that like anything you're saying or anything you're doing or anything like a lot of women might like get a couple glasses of wine in them and end up having sex with someone, and they wouldn't have done that if they weren't drinking. It's like every decision that you make is with a clear head. So if you want to do that, that's fine. But if you get to do it with a clear head, you don't have to have that like guilt or shame or wonder if I was just doing that because of alcohol, or I know I didn't really want to do that, but I ended up doing it. So it's just so much more, there's so much more confidence in being able to do things sober because you know you're making that decision.
Yeah. And I like when you said this is, well, I like it because you're sharing recovery. But one of the things you said to, when you were talking to Casey Scott was that you were with a guy, and because I've been in this exact position, and you guys are both drinking a lot. You're drinking more than him. And you're like, why can't we maybe we can get sober together? Like that is the most exhausting shit in the world, right? Like like maybe we can stop together, or maybe it's like, and now here you are with a full heart and a clear mind, being able to put yourself out there, find out what you like. For me too, it was Arrested Development, right? I mean, I'm still like a 18-year-old, or like whatever, I'm still like a big kid. I'm still learning every day because I started to drink when I was 13, and everything I did was behind that, all the confidence, all the relationships, all that stuff. And it's fun to explore and to figure out who you are and to figure out who you want to be with. But man, I do not miss somebody being like, you need to stop, or maybe we can stop together. Like that's the most exhausting shit in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely has to be something that you're choosing to do for you. And it's like swimming in the ocean and trying to pull somebody else with you that doesn't want to come. It's like, you gotta just swim to the lifeboat and then figure out if you can help them or not, because you can't force someone to do something they don't want to do. You got to decide if you want to get to that boat or not, just on your own.
So a couple more things before I let you get on to your day, because I know you said this is a big content creating day.
Oh yeah, I'm doing some content today.
So all right, so
I don't like to wear makeup every day, so I'm gonna put makeup on.
So you'll film content and then share it throughout the week.
Yeah, I batch stuff just with the boys. It's so much easier just to record like 10 reels at once, whether at school versus trying to do them every day.
So this has got to be, so you put out some, and again, like the intro, I'll talk about this, but now I want to talk a little bit about this. You put out some great content. Do you feel pressure to continue? Is there like a bar, like a comedian who now does a whole tour? Now he's got to come up with new stuff. Like, is there pressure to doing that? And where does that creativity come from?
Oh, is there pressure at times?
Yeah, let's go to the pressure part, because you've set a pretty high bar. So is there pressure to come up with more content?
There is pressure at times. I mean, a lot of the content, I'm inspired by other content creators. So you can kind of do a spin off of somebody else's stuff that fits your niche. So, always in like the sober single mom kind of vibe. And, it's not necessarily like there is a pressure to come up with content and stuff, but I've gotten better about not putting a lot of pressure into everything doing well. So like I'm going to just create what I think will fit my niche. And if it doesn't do well, it doesn't do well, and we just move on to the next thing. So
I mean, what is well for you? You have like hundreds of thousands of followers. Like what, if I put something up and I have like 80 likes, I'm like, I think I'm going to take it down. Like this, you're in a whole other stratosphere.
Well, I don't know. Like, most of my content is video, so most of it's real. So, but like I have a couple months, like last month, I had a reel hit 7 million views, and it's really hard to follow up that. Like you're just, like you're not going to have every reel hit 7 million views. So some of them do better than others, and you just kind of like, oh, that's cool. Now that one's doing well. We just got to keep creating content. So
is that real? Like, is that mind blowing for you? That like, and again, I think it's so great that you're putting out positive energy and positive content. But is that mind blowing for you that 7 million people have watched something that you created from your living room?
Yeah, it is insane sometimes, because I'll think like I'm not getting enough views, I'm not getting enough whatever, like I'm trying to like build this thing, and then I'm like you look at your history, and I have my very first reel that went like really viral. I had one hit 1 million when was that, like the fall, like 2 years ago, but then in 2021 I had a reel hit 14 million, and it was just like, holy crap, like that is so many people. But but it's also like really encouraging to just keep creating content. But like I said, like I can't put a lot of pressure on every reel doing that. But like if I have a reel go viral or do something that's doing really well, just being okay that there might be some reels that only get 15,000 views, and not put so much pressure on trying to make every reel a viral reel. I think just as a content creator, that's a good tip for anyone that's a content creator out there, is just keep creating content that fits your vibe and your brand. And some of them are going to hit home runs and some of them aren't. And you don't even know. Like the one that hit 7 million, I just recorded really randomly in my car. So when I was stuck in traffic, and I was like, oh, wow, I wasn't planning on that one being so successful. But yeah, there you have to kind of like not put too much pressure on yourself. Otherwise, you will get those creative blocks. Like if you're like, I have to have another one that's just as good as this one. It's like, no, it doesn't have to be just as good. It just has to be the average.
How do you deal with people that, I mean, you're on social media. Do you read replies? Do you read? Because people can be negative. I mean, like how do you handle that? Because it's kind of like on a much bigger stage when you get sober. Feelings are real, right? We have these feelings like, oh, like how do you deal with those feelings of like, oh man, like, cause again, I'm out there, with my work and stuff, and I want people to like what I'm doing. How do you deal with people, that are coming at you negative?
Well, I put like that comment as a like mirror up to myself. Like if it bothers me, then it's something that I'm saying to myself. If it's something that doesn't bother me, that means I'm secure in that area. So like my friend gave a really good example of this, that he was watching a speaker speak, and he was like given the like 4 people in the front row saying like, your blue hair is just so ugly. I hate your blue hair. It's awful. And then just going to each of them saying something about their hair color. And they're like, does that bother you? They're like, no, I don't have blue hair. So the people didn't have blue hair. So it didn't bother them. So that's like, if somebody tells me I'm a bad mom and I don't believe that I'm a bad mom, then that comment can't do shit to me. So it's like, I don't think I'm a bad mom. So it definitely is something that you have to reflect on, like, why does that comment bother me? Did I think I did bad? Is there something I can improve on it? Because there's some things that I'm like, you know what, they might have a point, but that's not something that's going to tear me down. That's going to be something now that I can be like, that, you know what, that's something I can work on. And I've had this actually I get more offended with like my Airbnbs, is when people leave comments about stuff that it's like, maybe they're right. Maybe I need to fix this and not just get super defensive at first.
So you have an Airbnb business now?
I have 2 I Airbnb my house, and then I renovated my rental house this summer and started Airbnb.
Look, you're getting like humble. So when people complain about that, that's like, oh, okay, let me see. And honestly, it sounds like, look, whatever you're into, 12 steps, chasing your purpose in sobriety, right? Being the sober single mom. It's all about being honest with yourself, looking in the mirror, like what is this bullshit? And you know, if you've been at it long enough and you're coming from the right place and you're surrounded by the right people, you know if something's real and you need to take a look at it, or if it's complete hogwash. And most of the time, it's BS.
Right.
All right. So you're a life coach or a sober coach?
I'm both. So my certificate is a professional recovery and life coach. So I'm able to work with both anybody, but I really like working with people that are wanting to like really transition their life, like where they're still stuck. They need some help setting goals. They need some help creating new habits. And I'm actually building a course right now that's going to be out in October about this, so that people that can't afford to work one-on-one with me are able to go through like the step-by-step guide on how to create healthy habits to make you more successful at your goal setting, and then just kind of finding more joy in the journey.
Where can people find this? Like, is it just follow at Life with Gentry, like TikTok and Instagram, or is there a specific website?
That's a good point that I probably should get something where people can be on email lists for it. But right now, if they just follow me on Instagram at Life with Gentry, it's going to be in my stories when I'm ready to launch. So launch is set for mid-October. So if you're following me, you're going to see content created about it, and there'll be step-by-step on how to get signed up.
All right. So one last thing, if you have like a woman, young woman, whoever, who's trying to stop drinking, what do you tell them if they say, Gentry, like they send you, DM, I can't stop drinking? What's your message for them?
Well, always quit. Don't quit quitting. It's always like a really good one. I think that a lot of what keeps people stuck is that guilt and shame. And so, really reflecting on that and learning to let go, and just pushing yourself to that uncomfortableness of letting that go, and just keep quitting. Just keep quitting. Try different things. Reach out to different people, but don't stop stopping. Don't quit quitting.
Gentry, I appreciate you so much. Thank you. I just appreciate you putting yourself out there, carrying the message of sobriety and not taking yourself too seriously. You're funny, and you're out there, and I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on here.
Thanks so much for listening to the Payoff with Pete. Once again, I'm Pete Souza. And of course, we are part of the Rogue Media Network. All kinds of good podcasts you can find at roguemedianetwork.com. And of course, you can find this podcast and all those other ones wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, other spots like that.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.
Are you a podcaster? Let's talk podcast hosting. Are you tired of your current podcast host? Need real support in a community that gets it? At Rogue Media Network, we offer top-tier podcast hosting services to help you thrive. From hosting and distribution to dedicated support, we've got you covered. Starting as low as $25 a month. Join our community of passionate podcasters today. Contact us at hello@roguemedianetwork.com.